Hey, hi everyone. Can you guys
Yeah, you're good.
Cool. So I'll just do a quick introduction. My name is Liz Kim. I am in my day job. I am a senior art director at Mbooth. But I am also a board member here at Asians in Advertising, and I am also head of creative here. And I'm sure a lot of you have been chatting with me on Instagram and LinkedIn to try to get it here. So that is me. So hi to everyone. I'm really excited to be moderating the second session of the day, getting more API stories made. We have what I think, some really amazing speakers, and I'm excited for them to introduce themselves. So Mimi, why don't you introduce yourself first?
Hi, everyone. I'm Mimi. I work at Wieden & Kennedy. My day-to-day role is Global Culture and Operations Manager of all 9 offices across the world. But I also executive produce social impact films. I co-lead Asians for Ad Color. I am a member of Gold House, also 108 Asian Marketers. And I'm an advisor for Agency, which is Wieden's Asian ERG.
Cool. And Xavier, do you want to do a quick intro?
Yeah, sure. Hey, my name is Xavier too. My Chinese name is Zhang Guoxian, so it's pretty important for this conversation. I'll get to that later. So I was formerly the group executive creative director of RGA New York. I'm also a painter and artist. I'm Singaporean, born and raised. I moved to America about 16 years ago. So that's a part of the story about that as well. Yeah, during my days at RGA, I was basically the creative lead for Samsung, Verizon, and P&G. So I'm really happy to be here. There's a lot of stories to be told and stories to be shared. Thanks for having me.
And last but certainly not least, JJ, a quick intro.
Yeah, I'm JJ, John Augustavo. I'm a director, activist. I work with missing pieces. I started out, I think quickly, it's just I think my story is unique for this. I guess I just came from making gangster rap videos with my friends in Seattle. Got really lucky. I made a crazy video that was 10 years ago that changed my life. And yeah, since then I've just been very fortunate to have a very solid career. And yeah, I'm Filipino American, and I think it's very important that people know that, because I don't think there's a lot of us, especially in my job. So that's it. Yeah, Pacific Northwest, Seattle.
JJ, can I share that you're also recently a new dad as well?
Yeah, I'm 5 weeks in. It's crazy. It is crazy. I love my little guy, but it is crazy. So yeah.
Well, it's really nice. I'm really glad to have all 3 of you on our panel today. I know getting API stories made is such an important topic, especially for us creatives. I know you guys introduced yourself a little bit. I would love it if each one of you would also share a little bit of the projects that you guys have worked on recently, where you guys were able to push API stories. So this time, why don't we start with Xavier, and why don't you tell us a little bit about the project that you had where you really had the API story as a front line?
Yeah, sure. This project is very close to my heart, and I consider myself very lucky to be able to be in advertising and work with a big brand like P&G to get our stories told. So last year, we are able to be part of P&G's ongoing advocacy for equality and inclusion. They do a lot of that. So they made a couple of campaigns you guys might be familiar in the past, which are all very, very great campaigns. The talk, the look, they're all pretty much Emmy-winning campaigns. But beyond that, they struck a lot of conversations within culture, get people trying to look at how we talk about certain things and have tough conversations with people. So this time around in 2022, they want to do it for our community. This has nothing to do with profit, nothing to do with product. They just want to have conversations with people. So the bar was set really high. So the reason why they want to do it, this is an amazing stat, is pretty sad one when I first discovered this stats. Is more than half of Asian in America don't feel safe in this country. That was 2022. And more than 80% of us don't feel like we belong in this country, regardless you are somebody like myself who came from Singapore and settled down and have a family now, or you are potentially like my future kids who are born in America. 80% of Asians in this country don't feel like they belong. So that is the problem that we're trying to solve. So it's a tall order. We started off talking to a lot of people. We have a collective within RGA called the Asian Voices. So it was very emotional because this was done outside of my day job, my Verizon and Samsung day job, I would say. So there's a lot of stories being told and a lot of emotions being poured into the campaign. And it's a lot about hearing and learning. And your first instinct when you want to combat an issue like that is to fight, right? I mean, you get very angry listening to stories. But we realized that approach wasn't right. So we took a different approach. We took all the information that we got and we really think about how do we evoke empathy in this group of people that we call movable middle, which is basically people who potentially could be the allies of our community. We don't need our community to support us. We need people outside of our community to support us. So we came up with this really interesting idea that what is a very simple way for somebody to start that conversation to make you feel like you're at home. And we landed on this idea called belonging starts with a name. And it's through a conversation with a group of people within RGA itself that we realized that nothing could make you feel more comfortable, especially for me. That's why I introduced my Chinese name, Zhang Xian. Because when I go back home in Singapore, people call me that. My mom called me that. My childhood friends call me that. And I felt so much at home. And we started to lean on that because that also comes from a space of understanding. It allows people, we are giving them the way in to understand our culture without being too aggressive, without being too intimidating. It's really as simple as that. And also getting our stories told. Our name has so much, it's like a cornerstone of almost our existence, our family, our heritage, why we even exist in this country. And our name has so much meaning. It's not just a regular Joe or John. No offense to those names, but Asian names has a lot of meaning to it. And if you guys are interested in the campaign, go pg.com/names. And this year, the P&G is launching real stories about real names of about people who worked at P&G. And the content series are pretty intense and pretty crazy. And beyond just making a piece of film, so the film basically, we made a launch film, which the protagonist is a Korean, young Korean girl who went through her life with a name that is called Yongju Park. And we did survey on the name itself, and more than 78%, if I remember correctly, don't recognize that name as being American. And this is also an issue. So I'm not going to spoil the film for you, but we also create a name generator for people to really sort of express their name. And the campaign basically caught fire, and people start sharing stories on LinkedIn, writing paragraphs and paragraphs of story, myself included, about how we have Western names because it makes it easier for people, but it's time for us to really let people understand. And really this month, this AAPI month, the easiest way for people to feel like comfortable is really walk to your co-workers, go to Asian friend of yours, and maybe just ask them what their name really means. I think you'll be surprised at how much closer you can get by learning about somebody that way. So this campaign, again, pg.com/names, is really something that's really interesting. And it's just the start of a conversation that P&G is happening. This is not a one-off campaign. And this is something that, like I say, is very close to my heart, and I'm pretty proud of it. So happy to chat more. So thank you.
Yeah, the name was such a beautiful video. If anyone hasn't watched it yet, I believe we just shared the link in the chat, so feel free to check that out later. And then Mimi, why don't you talk a little bit about the few projects that you have done recently that really pushes API stories?
Yeah, of course. Where to begin? I did this last time for a prep call too. I think it began in 2020. My partner and I at Wyden, her name is Satanya Tran, we're both first-gen Americans, and our parents are boat people, so we instantly connected. If you guys recall, in 2020, it was the height of anti-Asian violence, and I think for a minute we sat around waiting for someone to say something, whether that was internally within our agency, externally with brands. We're able to see briefs coming in, and no one was tackling this specific issue. Everything was very much siloed within our community. And then it was like a really late call. We're like, why don't we do something about it? And so we ended up concepting a film called Call It COVID. It was made with $300. The images in there are friends and family because we had no resources. And it was just to call attention to what was happening within our community. We wanted to push it out in any way possible for others to somewhat see what exactly was happening with our community. It ended up garnering over $2 million of donated media space. It aired on television. Dwayne Wade spoke about it, and it did what we intended it to do, was to start a conversation for people to kind of see everything that was going on. It also, did the other Addie things. It won a Ken Lion, but for us, like those awards and everything are always just an additional platform for more people to see it. After that year, if you guys recall, during the times, one of the significant moments in, our community was the Atlanta spa shootings. And that made us revisit our conversation. What else can we do about this? And so we decided to make a film called The Myth, that centers the model minority myth. And with our research, looking into it, the model minority myth, what was happening during that time, we had the Atlanta spa shootings, we had the Black Lives Matter movement, everything was going on. And we recognize that this is something that has been a systemic issue for many, many years. It's really interesting. If you go back to an article from New York Times, it exists today, you can find it online, from 1966, when they coined model minority myth, and they pitted our communities against each other, as if there was like one piece of the pie and we all had to fight about what was going on. And so that's why we centered this film around an Asian woman and her Black male partner, and how she experienced the model minority myth. And our goal was to humanize this. You learn it in education, you learn like, oh, this is what happens, whatever, but to feel something and to connect with something, that's what we wanted to do, because we're storytellers. If our industries were the one that pushed out this narrative of what it was stereotypically being Asian, being a Black person, whatever it may be, we can help combat that in so many different ways. So in both of our films, that's what exactly we try to do, is to invite you in, not only recognize the Asian experience, but also connect with it, resonate with it. And our goal is always to go beyond advertising. Currently, both our films are actually inducted into school curriculum now to teach the next generation about all this stuff in a more human way that people can connect to. So those are the two films that kind of led all of this, and why we have become so invested in telling our stories out there. Oh, and then you can watch it on callitcovid.com if you guys want to take a peek at it.
Amazing. And then JJ, why don't you tell us a little bit about some projects you have worked on recently that pushes some of the API stories?
Yeah, of course. I think my perspective is different because I'm like a director, I guess. So sometimes I find it difficult to push. Like sometimes my impact is more just like pushing casting or behind the camera a lot of the time. Like, can I make my crew look like me? Can I make sure there's a cast that looks like me? I can't always be in charge of the entire project be that way, but a lot of the impact I really try to have is just like bits like that, places where maybe it's not seen all the time by everybody. But more recently, I've been developing a feature from my short film called Just a Kid from Seattle, and that's like a Filipino American, Asian American story. Like 2 out of 3 of our lead casts are Asian American, Cambodian American, and Filipino American. And I would be lying if I said it was easy even trying to get this far with that film, because no offense to everyone else, like we have come a long way, but still I find in the Hollywood filmmaking landscape, East Asian stories are here, right? But like Filipino American, Southeast Asian, like I don't think we have the value where people even know what that is or where to put us, or they make shows about nurse, cleaning lady, but Filipinos aren't in it. You know what I'm saying? Like that's us. So like at least put us in there. So it's been really cool developing that film. I've had a great team, and actually have seen in the last year the uptick of like, we're actually going to make this. It's going to be something special, a coming of age Filipino American, Asian American story. But that's, I would say, and like the way who I am is, it's more American. And I also say it's like, I am Filipino American, but I grew up in America. So like there's a difference to me. And I think that's a thing that's really, like, if you've known me and who I've been since I've been, I was like, I'm Filipino American, but I'm not from the Philippines, and I didn't grow up like all the way that way. It's a different version. And I think that's what I'm even starting to see. I don't want to jump ahead in your questions, but like, that's what I think is important. I'm starting to see stories where people just look like us, but they're just Americans, right? And that's what I've been fighting for since I had a career, since I was a kid. Is like, I just want to be myself and not only have to answer about like why I like banana ketchup and all these other things. Like, I don't want that to be the first thing you know about me. You know what I'm saying? I look different, but I'm one of you. So that film to me has been like a 6-7 year journey to get people to believe in it, to develop it, to finally have a cast. Like, it's been crazy trying to cast a movie when you're trying to make a movie built around a Filipino American. Tell me if you can name off the top of your head a 17 to 25-year-old Filipino American that can get a movie made. It's almost zero. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's been a journey, but I keep fighting it because I think the more of us that are like on here trying to make those things will empower the next generation to know they can just do it and that it's valuable to make their story. And then if I just like rewind, like this time last year, I made I would say not a short film. I'd say it's more of a visual poem. It's called Defy. And I really just set out, it's a celebration of our faces. That's what I wanted to make. It's like literally just a poem. There was no, I didn't set out making it for purpose. My cinematographer and I, Mego, she's Taiwanese, but Taiwanese American. We just wanted to make something because we found there was no value given to our stories. And I was like hitting up people like, hey, can we find a brand to help us? And everyone was like, no, there's nothing, whatever. And I'm like, okay, I see how you get super excited for all the other months. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, I'm pretty like this way. So sorry. But you know, I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to make a thing and you watch. It's going to be heat. And then you're going to get behind it. And then you're going to, whatever. I did my thing. So me and Mego hit up every contact we had, you know, like Nina Yang's in it. That's like Nina Yang's like the G of all producers. She's in it. You know what I'm saying? And it was just this thing we wanted to make to celebrate our faces, make us look beautiful, sexy, cool, all the things we're not allowed to be. I was like, let me take my ability and my cinematographer's ability of like, when we came up in videos making cool stuff, let's put that into our faces. And so I made this thing. And I was also really thoughtful about being inclusive. I think not in a corny way. I made sure the first thing I got was like South Asians. I made sure to get Pacific Islanders. Like, I have like a big soft spot because of my wife's family's like Hawaiian and stuff. Like, they never get represented in this. If Filipinos and Southeast Asians don't get represented, I was like, okay, let's go even further. So this film or poem, this visual poem, I think was a lot more impactful than I thought it would be. I think it's really beautiful and I'm very proud of it. And it's really just people's voices. So check it out and stay to the end, because even this Hawaiian singer who I just found on TikTok, I hit him up and I was like, hey, can you sing this song for the credits? And he did it. That's how beautiful it is. People are just in it. So that's it.
Well, for this next question, JJ, I kind of feel like you talked about it a little bit, but why is it important to push the creation of API stories and casting, like in front of back and in back of camera? Because I know you mentioned that you push for it, but why is it important to do that? Maybe JJ, go first.
Yeah, I might as well, because I was kind of, I don't want to think.
Yeah, you started talking about it for sure.
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, in my opinion, it's just to allow people that look like us to know they can do it. Because like my little baby violin, I pull out as like when I was coming up, there was not a single person I looked up to that looked like me in my entire life. Because I grew up playing sports, I like hip hop, I like movies. And I was like, you can tell me, but there was not a single person that I could look up to like me. Do you know what I'm saying? So somehow, some way I figured out how to do it, and I believed I could do it, which is crazy. I think I give credit to my parents for making me think I can be whatever I want. And that's the American side, I think, where they're just like, go for it, right? But there's no reason why I should have, because there was nothing telling me I was not allowed to. That's not the right word, but just telling me that there was possibility to be successful. So I think people like us going, hey, let's make sure we cast someone, make sure our crew is this way. If you just, I don't think people sometimes, if you grow up, like Xavier was saying, if you grow up in a country where you don't see anybody of value doing the things you want to do, how would you feel like you're supposed to be here or you're supposed to add to society? So you have to go 110% opposite direction, trying to make it happen for others. So that's for me is just that, just enabling younger folks or even people who are just trying to shift their career to know it's possible. So that's probably my little violin.
How about you, Xavier? Why is it important for you?
Yeah, there's two parts, right? The first part is why is it important to push our stories is because banana and ketchup. I like to talk about food, right? I mean, the word Asian is such a big, crazy, loaded word that I myself couldn't say I understand it. And it's our job, our duty to bring across culture. And recently in New York, there's a Singaporean market. Everybody's freaking out. Like, what is this dish I never had before? It's so different. Our culture is so diverse, so different. We speak different languages. We have such diverse background, even being Chinese. It's so easy to just lump us all together in this country. Oh, Xavier is Chinese, and therefore he comes from this place and that place. But everybody who knows that a Singaporean Chinese, maybe we are more, we used to be a colony, you know, so our exposed to the culture is so different. Well, in fact, we're kind of more skewed towards the Western world than the Eastern world, which is kind of weird for a lot of Singaporeans growing up, thinking back. So that is number one. Our diverse stories needs to be told the right way, not the Hollywood way, the right way, the JJ way. We need to be told the right way. The second part is casting folks. So I'm going to use the name as an example. Right from the start, we decided that the creative team within the agency are all Asian AAPI people. We wanted to do that because there's nobody who could understand our stories, our pain, our struggles, our dad struggles, our mom struggles. It has to be that. And it doesn't go through a lot of layers. It just goes straight to the client, which is also a team of AAPI members that goes straight up to the chief brand officer, Pritchard. I need to give him credit for that. He was with us till the end. So that is that. And then when we went down to production, it's also, and at least the main crew was the entire AAPI crew as well. We have a Japanese director, Go Iramoto. Our editor is Sophia Liu. We decided to, because the passion that they put into, and then the sensitivity towards culture, like for example, Go as a director, knowing that the script was written for a Korean family, he was so sensitive about everything, including the rice cooker, the chopsticks, the painting in the dining table, what kind of culinary ware they're using, what kind of kitchen appliances they're using. He's so sensitive to those. So I think it's the idea that you can't just lump us together is the most important thing. And when he talks about chopsticks, I knew he's the person we're going to go to, because I'm fascinated with chopsticks. I know Korean uses a certain type of chopsticks, Japanese use a certain type of chopsticks, which is super hard to use. So even really, really minor details like that really matters when it comes down to getting the right folks to make the right thing. Like I say, it's going to be pretty sad if Hollywood takes over. For example, I like to talk about Crazy Rich Asians, whether it puts Singapore on the map in the right way or the wrong way, but the stories needs to be told in the right way. So I think there's something that needs to be pushed even further than that. I'm happy that they put us on the map. You know, people know what Singapore is about, people know about the food that we eat and stuff like that, but I think still it's our responsibility to push the stories even further, so that the authenticity, the true stories can be told.
And how about you, Mimi? Why do you think it's important to push the creation of API stories?
I think they both said, like, they did it. I'm just kidding. I think I think I didn't mention this before. That both of my films are they're self-initiated. We started out with no budget and no brand tied to it. That's unheard of in advertising. So for us, it means everything. I think for the Asian community, we're just regarded as a monolith. There's so many stories out there. And to JJ's point, a lot of them are centered in a specific, like, East Asian narrative. And I'm a Southeast Asian woman. And even for myself, people just assume I'm East Asian. And that's a story in itself. So I think it's so important because like I mentioned before, like, there's so many nuances, there's so many layers, intersectionality, and the fact that Hollywood, advertising, whatever the medium is, it's pushing this one narrative. And so if more and more people, if I can push someone else to tell the story, this is why I do these speaking engagements. You guys don't all know this, but I actually black out at every single speaking engagement I've ever done. I'm blacking out right now. But I know when I do this is that someone else will see themselves in me. You know, I've had people say, I've never heard a boat story on stage before. I've never heard a refugee story. I never saw an image that looks like my mom on stage until you spoke about it. And so the reason I think we're all here and why we keep doing what we're doing, so that others can do the same and lead the way. And yeah, so both of our films, it was very important that the people who were involved looked like us behind and in front of the camera. I remember on The Myth, a set of The Myth, which was made under $200,000. If you guys know anything about ad world, that's like a social post. We were able to make that film with that much money and generous donations. Someone said, this is the most Asian people I've ever seen on set. And there weren't that many of us. Like, that's the crazy thing to me, to hear that. It was great, but I love that saying so much that what I did was I made postcards of an image of the whole crew and I sent it all, and I hand wrote thank you notes for all the love and heart they poured into it. But that was the start of it for me. I'm actually working on a third film right now, again, born out of the Asian experience and in hopes to expand to other marginalized communities. And this is interesting. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'm going to be real. So the hero sisters are actually Viet sisters. And the casting agent actually recruited 3 other agencies to help them find Viet sisters. They came back with 5 people. 2 days before our shoot, we had no Vietnamese hero sisters because they couldn't find anybody. And what does that tell you? That tells you that our parents didn't believe that this job is viable, this industry is something that they should have their kids in, whatever it may be. But there was someone that said, if you wanted a Japanese, Chinese, or Korean person, yeah, plenty of those. Can they speak the Vietnamese language and the lines? And right then and there, we're just like, okay, what can we do? And this is how scrappy our films are. 8 p.m., 2 days before the shoot, before we're supposed to hop on a plane to LA to shoot, they go, Mimi, can we put your girls on tape? So my 2 little girls are on the 3rd film. I think this is the first time I've said it publicly. They are 4 and 8. They're actually Viet Puerto Rican babies, first biracial babies in my entire family. And I struggled with it in the beginning. I was like, oh, I don't want to center like our stories and myself, because that's my goal, is always to, it's born out of our experiences, but I want it to resonate with so many different people. And so I struggled with it. And at the end of the day, for me, it's like, how do we tell this story authentically? How do we push this conversation? And I asked my girls, I was like, do you want to do it? Like, that was the first thing I want to make sure. And they were down. And the director, who's Parisian, the art director, the EPs from both sides, they were like, we love them. And so they ended up being casted for this. And yeah, and I think that's, it's the point of this question, why it's so important. Because if anyone ever asks if we can have this Asian person speak a different language and to portray someone else, it's like, and if we are in the seat to say no, we should say no. We shouldn't bend. Because I can tell you this, like 2 years ago, I probably would have bended. I was like, oh, at least we're highlighting someone that looks Asian, But if we're in the seat, we have a responsibility to push what we know it's right. And to be honest, when that person said it, I was just like, I don't think I could have hid that reaction from my face. But yeah.
Well, I'm so excited, Mimi. I think I'm excited for this 3rd video. I didn't know your girls were going to be in it. So
I know I didn't think I was going to share that with anyone, but yes, they will be in it, guys.
Extra special. That would be extra special for sure. So the next question I have, maybe JJ, you could start with this, is I know we do a lot of we talk a little bit about it, the casting for these API stories. And I know we might deal with it in an everyday basis or, occasionally, but how do you make sure that you're not playing into Asian stereotypes during casting?
Yeah, I mean, I think Mimi said the word. It's a word I don't like, but it's being authentic, and like I think that's a very broad word. But it's like, yeah, you just have to be very conscious of the choices you're making and how those are being received by your audience. Like, it is our duty that we have to do the lifting times 10, because we realize our audience doesn't have all the same information or sensitivities to thoughts, and they might just be watching with a very generic, generalized brush. So unfortunately, that's why I said the difficulty is on us to be like, oh, do I want to put this character in a laundromat? Even though that might be realistic, you just have to be thoughtful if who's seeing it, what's the environment. That it's a very difficult dance to waltz through, and I have to be really thoughtful about it. But I also think, for me, with the casting thing, to be careful of stereotypes is just to try to cast our faces in roles that are just people. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that for me is where we start to change, and then it's not a stereotype anymore. It's just a person who happens to be ethnically Asian Pacific Islander. But that's probably for me. But I did say earlier, the other thing as well is sometimes I get upset when we don't get put in the roles that you do know us for, though, if I'm being real. So there's like a dance. That's what I'm saying. It's like, okay, if you are going to have a nurse, it should be Filipino. All right. Even though I'd be upset if you made them like a caricature. Because, you know, like when I had a kid, I just had a kid, right? Freaking like 12 of the nurses, like 8 of them were Filipino. Like it's just real. And then you've got watch like ER, the shows are no Filipinos. So I'm saying it's like, it's like we have to be thoughtful about it, but there are moments when, yeah, that is the real thing. So just don't make the person a caricature. Make them a human that's three-dimensional and has a story, and you feel like they're not just a broad comedy thing. I think that's also why we're not doing breakfast at Tiffany's anymore. You know what I'm saying?
How about you, Xavier? How do you make
Yeah.
sure when you're casting Asian people that you're not playing into your
Yeah.
typical Asian stereotype?
I mean, I'm always the person that think that there's a lot of people who are smarter and understand more. So I always play the approach to make sure that at least from the commercial front, the client agrees how important it is to not get it wrong. If once we get it wrong, there's no return, right? So I think for our project, we actually got like this, just a lot of my Singaporean directors, Japanese, people from all, like one of my copywriters, she's Filipino as well. But we need somebody who understands Korean culture, because the film is about a Korean couple and a Korean baby. So we actually got a Korean consultant to come in and really tell us what is that really sensitive, really nuances that we don't even know exist. I think I like to use the word self-aware. I'm always curious about learning about different culture, mostly from eating and traveling, learning from people's food. But there's so much of Asian culture that we just have to start off by saying that I'm willing to learn. I don't understand. And it's okay, that if not, we are stereotyping ourselves in this whole Zoom chat, because most of us don't understand everybody's culture. It's so different to if you want to make a movie about Singaporean, for instance, an Indian or Malay person growing up in Singapore. It's vastly different from somebody from India or growing up in Malaysia, although it's just 45 minutes away. I think we have to understand that is so much, instead of saying that it's complicated, make it feel like it's so much material and history and stories to really uncover and understand. That makes it so exciting. I think the first step is to just say that I don't understand it, and it's okay, because I will say that I'm the first person that I don't understand enough of a lot of Asian culture, a lot of Vietnamese culture as well. I could just do an example. But using that approach, I think will take you a long way, and also making sure that our clients or partners that we are working with, whether it's Hollywood, whether it's P&G in this instance, or other clients, realize the importance of not getting it wrong. It's worth the investment. Don't get it wrong, because once you get it wrong, there's no return, and it's very important to get it right. So
Amazing.
One more thing.
Yeah, of course, JJ, add
Oh
in.
yeah. That's what I was saying. I was thinking one other thing that not necessarily a stereotype, and I think maybe it's not like putting the cart before the horse, or whatever the saying is also being thoughtful about I don't know what the right word is for this, but like skin diversity. Do you know what I'm saying? Because like even when it's in the front end of Asian Americans being in things, it's the propensity is to cast like lighter skin or mixed people and stuff. It's like we have a vast array of faces. And I remember earlier in my career when everything I was doing was like Black focused, because that was like where I came up, and everyone was like, and then it was being thoughtful about making sure like we have like darker skin for that too. And so that's a thing that we don't necessarily talk about, but it's like such a big part of Asian cultures is like skin color and bleaching and have an umbrella when you go outside, you know what I'm saying? Like things like that. But it's like people are dark and stuff, and that's beautiful. You know what I'm saying? Like that's fine. And so it is being thoughtful and putting that out there as if that is, even though it is normal in our world, but just not in like visual media is that normal, and it's given a what's it called? Given value. And that's a big word to me, value. So that's it. I wanted to say that because there's something in my brain went, thank you. You inspired me to say that. And someone wrote colorism. That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you.
And that's really, yeah, I think it just touches my heart because you don't. I think people think Asian, they see faces like me, and they
Yeah.
there's more than just a face like mine. So for any future storytellers out there, what is a piece of advice you can give them to help them get a story be made? Mimi, why don't we start with you?
A story to be made. Oh, that's like a big question. Honestly, like why I'm here, I am is the people that have surrounded me. I think find the right people, trust them, let them lean into their own strengths, and then you'll find that magic in a sense. That sounds so cliche, but it really is. Like once you trust the people that are you're working with, like the craziest stuff can happen from there.
I mean, I'll answer.
Yeah.
I'm keeping it
Um,
short. I'm keeping it short.
Yeah, like same thing I said before is like someone who like I've been doing this for like a decade now. And like when I first did it, I just really felt like I was the only person of me existing and no one wanted to make anything I wanted to make. Literally 0%. It was just like, why don't you make the character white? Why don't you make the character black? It was always this conversation. And but I think the way I'm telling like a young filmmaker how to do it is just to say, like, pardon my French, fuck that. Just do you. That is how I became me. And I said, I'm gonna fail as hard as I can being myself, or I'm gonna win. But that's it. And I know maybe we aren't all built that way, but if you can just do it 10% more than you're comfortable with, I promise you'll have a better, more successful version of your career that you can be happy with. And that maybe that's just, like I said, if you're just doing casting or like the skip, but just don't like bend to people who want to make something safe because they don't understand it. Make them understand. So that's about it. I mean, it makes it sound very simple, but you just have to have, like, you just have to be sure. And I feel like the more you can be sure about something and stay with it, people will eventually believe in it.
Yeah, I like that. I agree with Yumi and JJ as well. But there's something that's bugging me recently after I made the campaign, because I think a lot of people want to, at least again, from a commercial front, a lot of brands want to participate, especially in AIPI month, wants to stand up and say something, but I'm getting worried that the approach, and this is maybe just a watch out for everybody, myself included, is not to get into telling stories that we sort of victimize ourselves, in the sense that then all our minority sort of community, we start comparing notes, that we start being victims of this country. And that really keeps me awake a lot when I was thinking about it, because there's some things that I saw coming out in this world. And I'm not saying that, like, however, what we did was right or wrong. There's no such thing. But I saw in some work that really taps into a lot of anger, a lot of hate, a lot of they shouldn't do this to us, blah, blah, blah. And I think I know where that pain is coming from, and I know where that you always want to fight, and I'm the first one to say that. But I just want to put it out there that we have a responsibility, in order for us to tell the right stories, we kind of need to find a different way in for people to understand. Because once you did that, and once you victimize ourselves, people are just going to turn away, that because nobody wants to listen. It doesn't work this way. One thing I realized about America, it doesn't work this way.
Oh.
You have to find a different way in, and find a different way to have conversations. There's just something that keeps me out awake beyond just like working for clients, because I think it will get more and more chances to tell these stories, but we have to be responsible on how we make it happen.
I was just say, like, making stories that aren't just based around trauma is so important, like for all of us, like in general. But I do think for us, like, you see, especially like I said, like Pacific Islander, Southeast Asians, like a lot of our countries and our families came here for either because they're refugees or because like their lives were brutal, right? But it's so easy to tap into that. I mean, that's where I'm saying, like, everything everywhere all at once, beef, things that are making us just be people that are dealing with normal life stuff and not just the trauma of our ethnicity is really important. And Xavier, I'm happy you said that, because I think that is something that's so important to me, is that's how you humanize us and then give us even more value. As all of a sudden, when you see us as more than like a refugee or a person that works at a laundromat, whatever terrible things people think about Asian Americans, Asians. So that's just what I wanted to add on.
Yeah, I think it's like really
Joy.
joy. Yes, like joy, celebrating who we are and us, and not saying that we should put all that trauma and everything that happened aside, but it's like, how do we make that productive? We got your attention now. What can we do to move the needle now? We've done that for a few years. Let's go ahead and push this, center joy. And I know we talk about this later, things we're excited about from our communities and stuff, but I really think it is a time to celebrate this phase and what feels like really good momentum, and all of us should be riding it.
Well, I guess Mimi, well, you hinted at it, but maybe we talk about a little bit about media, something that's happening in media or now, or something that's about to come that gets you excited for what the future of API stories are. Why don't you start? What are you excited for that's about to happen?
Sorry, Liz. We're all like a little bit like, oh, next question. We're going to talk about it, but we'll talk about it. Okay. I'm really excited. So I was lucky enough to see Joyride a little early. And oh my gosh, I am just so excited about that. Our stories are really getting out there. Like, if you guys haven't seen the trailer, it's about 4 women: Ashley Park, Sabrina Wu, Sherry Cola, Stephanie Shu. And they show us an Asian woman on screen that you had never seen before. The sexual empowerment, the intersectionality, the representation of non-binary characters. It goes against every stereotype that you can think of about Asian women being submissive. It goes against, like, how some people feminize Asian men, things like that. Like, it's totally different. And it doesn't just talk about being Asian in America. It talks about being Asian in your homeland as well. And I'm just like, this movie does so much while we talk about, not always rooting things in trauma. Like, while this is a very emotional movie, it's joy. Like, it's hilarious. And I love how raunchy it is and how it can be compared to Hangover and all these things, because back then when we were growing up, that's all we saw. We saw Hangover, Bridesmaids, things like that. So the fact that, like, our community is now tapping into this, like, comedic industry and things like that and being unapologetic about it, that's what I'm excited for. As you can see, I'm an Asian woman with blonde hair. I look so, like, in Oregon, I'm just like, oh, who the hell is she? And she's, so for me, I think I just applaud anyone that's able to do that and able to do it in a way that people can see themselves in. Because when you guys watch the film, when you even watch the trailer, it's not unusual. We just always, we have friends that we talk about this stuff all the time, but to see it on the big screen, for others to see it beyond our community, is like so powerful. Like, I'm just really excited about it. Go watch it. What a plug. But yeah, that's what I'm excited about.
I mean, I know I'm very excited. The trailer has me pumped for sure. Xavier, how about you? Anything that came out?
Yeah,
To
I'm
come
gonna add
out,
on
what's
to that.
exciting?
I think what got me really excited recently is actually Physical 100. I think we talked about that. Because when that came out, all of my friends were like, I don't want to mess with those Asian boys or girls or men, women in that. I think it totally, in a very simple way. It might sound a little bit stupid. It's just like a game show. But in many ways, it did a lot of things. Number one, it shows that a lot of men, women, regardless of age, Asians are not weak. We can be as strong as we want. We can be as tough as we want. And we can also be as good looking and tough and whatever that word, metrosexual, which is such a weird word to come together. We can kick your ass if we want to. And Michelle, you as well. So, and that did a lot of things. The second thing that was really fascinating about Physical 100 is how we compete. The notion of respect that we have for each other is crazy. It really just checks so many boxes for me. And I think that really opened the eyes to a lot of people. And when I started watching it, a lot of my friends were just telling me how crazy this game show actually is. And also the art direction is almost like Squid Game, but rather that's besides the point. But I think that TV show really changed the perspective. And I've been following some of the contestants as well. And then it just changed the perspective of us being weak, demure, Asian woman couldn't do this and that. It's just changed so much. And it's just like, shut up. It's wait till you see this 100 of the strongest people compete in the craziest thing possible with so much respect. Then you come and tell us, then you come and look at me in my eye and say that you cannot be beautiful and sexy and strong at the same time, and just because we are Asians. So I think that really makes me really happy. And obviously you guys can tell I binge watched the whole thing. I was waiting like every week for it to drop, and Netflix was so smart. There was months they never really released the whole thing. So I hope there's a second season. I'm curious to see what kind of twist they put into it, but I think that did a lot, at least for me and for our community in terms of perspective.
I know I definitely was really fascinated by 102, physical 100. Did not know that. How about you, JJ? Anything that's coming up or just came out recently that makes you excited about API stories?
I mean, I already mentioned, I'm sure everybody's like, Beef was I really liked Beef. I think Beef, it's just people. You know what I'm saying? And there was a really tasteful way of like talking shit or talking crap. I don't know if it's word, but like just subtle little things where like the lady's like says, "Oh, I learned this Japanese thing," and she's like, "Great." Do you know what I mean? Like we've all had those experiences, and I just thought it was but it wasn't about that. That just was like a little jab they throw in there. And like I said, that's narcissistically, that speaks so heavy to me because that's always been my experience is like, bro, I grew up in Seattle. Like, what are we talking about right now? And then people are like, "Oh, I'm sorry." You know what I'm saying? So like Beef for me really hit on so many levels. And then just like, I think people, I'm excited about just like 20, whatever year it is, 2023. But like whatever years we have people that wouldn't have been when I was younger proud of like their ethnicity, like Jordan Clarkson in the NBA, bro. Like he's so proud to be Filipino. Like I guarantee 20 years of this guy would have been like, I'm just black, right? But he's just like so out about being Filipino and as a fashion icon. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what I'm excited about. It's acceptable now to be proud about your Asian side when you're mixed, because I'm mixed. So that's clearly my like thing is like, hey man, that's like really important. But it's like so cool for people like that. I think this fine artist, Patrick Martinez, he's like incredible visual artist and he's like Latino, Filipino, does like neon and all this like very like LA neon stuff. And he's like super out about being Filipino too, when he could definitely like choose his Latino side because he's from LA. But I just think we're in this really interesting place where people are feeling more empowered about their Asian American Pacific Islander ethnicity, when it probably was so much easier to choose the other side and be like, oh yeah, I'm like this thing, but I'm mostly this other thing. But now it's like, you can be proud about it. So that's probably like beyond like Beef or Everything Ever All at Once, like Joyride, like specific humans being empowered to make us feel like we're cool and sexy and all these things. I love that, especially as like a male. Like I said, like Xavier, you said, like the best I could say is like growing up, I was always made to feel not important thing. And I was like a guy who like played sports and all these things. And I was always put in that little box, like you're weak and all these things. So it's really cool with these shows and things that just allow us to fill new spaces that we weren't allowed to before. So yes, that's it.
Well, I know we're close to time, and we have a lot of questions in our Q&A. So if anyone else wants to drop in questions in the chat, but while we wait for some more questions, did anyone have any last minute shout outs they wanted to do before we go to Q&A? Any quick shout outs or GJ, go ahead.
Yeah, I got you. I just was gonna shout out my friends and I, like who are all creatives, like Filipino Americans. We run like a nonprofit kind of creative thing called A Bunch of Savages. It's Filipino American focused, but of course it's just like brown people help out. We fund like short films. We show films every month. We mentor young directors, like bring them on set. We do workshops every month for like artists, cinematographers. We've had those like every month. It's just a thing we're doing just to help folks and give it people space to learn about culture. Like yesterday we had a screening for this movie called Was a Simple Man. It's a Hawaiian film. And yeah, it's just like that. It's like a cultural thing where we can all come together in a safe space, especially if you're Filipino American. So check it out.
I'm gonna raise my hand now.
What's up, Mimi? What's your shout out?
Just the film, like I told you about, that I'm working on is about the women's revolution globally, actually. And it will be out if everything goes well. We're in edit mode right now. May 18th. You guys will see it. Anyone want to donate some media? Hit me up. And then also, if you're in Portland, the agency is doing a night market and highlighting some API artists and supporting over 20 small businesses. So that's White and Kennedy. I'll be there because I saw a few people are from Portland. So just hit me up and we'll get you in.
For you too.
Yeah. I need to shout out to my amazing clients that push the work forward, Yayun, Janet, Mark, and also the team that helped us make this work, which is Gabriel Chung, Leah Franso, Maya, Megan McKinsey. Without them, this wouldn't happen. But go to the website and really scroll down to the end and see the second phase of real stories of people's names. Someone is going to make you cry, because I believe that they are employees of P&G, and their stories were so heartfelt about people getting their names wrong when you graduate, when all their parents want was to see her graduate from college and stuff like that. I'm really happy that we get into the real space right now. And this is, again, it's not just a campaign. We want to have a conversation, and shout out to all those people that I just mentioned that made it happen. I can't do this. Nobody can do this yourself. It's always an army of really talented people. And the director, Go Iromoto and Sophia Liu as well. So.
Well, I think a lot of people are excited about everything. So we have 5 minutes, and we'll try to get through as many Q&A questions as we can. And so Mimi, John, JJ, and Xavier, just, speak up if you have any answers to these questions. So how do you push back when clients want to cast ethnically ambiguous?
The answers.
Who wants to go, JJ? You want to go for
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, it's pretty similar to what I said before. I think, especially in a commercial environment, you just have to choose the correct battle from when to really speak your mind. And I think it's been a long journey, probably for all of us, to feel empowered enough to stand up for what you want to do. But that's it. I've just found in the past, it's like, if the people are like, oh, I want to change this. I was like, no, I want it to be this for this reason. That's it. I mean, I think you have to be specific. And if we've learned anything from films like Everything Everywhere All at Once, being actually specific is actually more relatable than just doing these very broad characters that you can't even relate to them. You don't understand them. So I think ethnically neutral, whatever that, oh my God, hold on, triggered for a second. I had a shoot like 2 or 3 shoots ago, and the client said my casting was too diverse. So I just want to say, she said it to my face, too diverse. And I said, oh, so there are too many brown people. I said it to her face. And she's like, I guess. And I was like, this is what I'm dealing with. Because they wanted an ethnically neutral person. And I was like, what even is that? Until like the whole world mixes together, there's not that. So I had to share that because I forgot how much that made me upset. And I'm like the one person in the room. I was like, I guess I'm the one person who's got to stand up for this and say, well, how awkward this is. But that's what I'm saying is like, that was a really extreme example, but I literally was like, okay, then what's the answer? If it's too brown, what's the correct version? Anyway, back to the normal story. It's like,
it's so necessary though.
But JJ, that actually happened to me at a shoot recently where the client told me that my casting was too diverse, and it was a total of 4 people and only one person was white, and they told me.
Yeah. And what does it mean? What is it if it's too diverse? What is the other side of it? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, what's the answer?
Let's just acknowledge that you two saying something is already something that they weren't expecting. Do you know what I mean? Like, it takes a lot. And I think, Jaya, you've been doing this for like 10 plus years. It gets easier, right? But I can tell you this, like being new in the industry and things like that, you're afraid of repercussions, to burn bridges and things like that. So I applaud you for like saying something, because that's hard sometimes, especially when you try to figure yourself out,
People are crazy.
Yeah, as well. I think just a good advice is to like very subtly make people realize that it's wrong, but don't say that it's wrong. I think we have come to a point in our culture in the world that I agree, JJ, the more specific you are, the more traction you get. When I was very young, started in advertising in Singapore, we used to have this thing called Pan-Asian, which is just people like my friends who are like English mixed with Chinese, but you couldn't tell who they are, basically. I think we really moved past that stage. We want to understand people's story, and also questions like what kind of content you are putting out in the world that requires a casting like that. What kind of stories are you trying to tell? It's just really strange. I think honesty and honest conversation also come from a place to help brands or help clients understand that don't get it wrong. I say this multiple times, don't get it wrong. It's bad, So that's just it. I think we moved past. I think the world is ready for like to experience different parts. Maybe America as well. I mean, maybe that's just a sweeping statement, but I believe in people trying to really see the real stories.
I know we're at time, but I would like to ask this one more question. So, how do you combat tokenism and riding on the cultural clout train in your companies? I feel like AAPI month is seriously overlooked and often a last minute thought. So I guess that really resonates with a lot of you guys working on these get to work on projects. How did you guys combat those tokenism and like get people to be like interested in this without just it being oh, it's just for API month?
Oh, I'm the problem child at Wine and Kennedy, and I'm not afraid to say that. I think for the longest time, I've been there for 6 years now or something, but when I first got there, I was that person that was afraid of repercussions. I, did what I was supposed to do, put my head down, work and all those things. And I realized that it didn't work for me. I wasn't a white person. That's not how I was supposed to succeed. So once I embraced who I was and what I wanted to do and the messaging I wanted to put out there, that's when I was not only fulfilled, but my career took off. And for me, and I think someone mentioned this maybe in the last panel, if my voice and where I am at my company can help one other person in our community, I'm going to keep on being that problem child. And it's really, really hard, but after a lot of practice, it gets simpler. So I think beyond doing AAPI month, just don't stop asking for more. That's my advice.
Yeah, I think it's like, I think something when I was making that Defy film last year, we all were like, well, why are we all just like put into this little baby month? Because there's like hundreds of different ethnicities. Like, why are we all just jammed into this little month together? Like, how crazy is it that it's NHPI and we're all supposed to be the same? You know what I'm saying? Like the difference between like a person from Fiji and then from Punjab, you know what I mean? Like that's like so different. So my thing is like, let's not just make it this month. And I've always been like, that's where I said we go all the way back to before. The whole year you're trying to help your community out, whether it's on these shoots or if it's going out to an event. I know that's really hard to do. Life is brutal. It's exhausting. It's relentless. It's so hard to give yourself to other people you don't know. But if you just try one more time in your life, it makes a difference. So I know it sounds like very pie in the sky, but that's how I try it. Is like, you can't just do it this month. This month is the celebration. Yes. This is the month we're all here on this thing right now. And we're like, yes, together. But in like 4 months, it falls off a little bit. But that's when you keep doing it. That's when you keep being the problem child, or you keep trying to cast, or whatever you got to do. As like, just do it a year-round thing, not necessarily a year-round celebration, just a year-round activity to try to bring our faces up and our stories up. So,
I know Xavier, we're like a little over time, but did you want to?
No, I agree. It's just that this is the month that we just start conversations and maybe get people to understand a little bit more, and it's also a start just to like get the ball rolling. But I agree, there's so many different groups of people. How can we just jam everything into 1 month and then just call it quits? Like, oh, we're done.
It's a systemic issue. Like they do this on
Exactly.
purpose for us to like fight for the piece of the pie, when in general there's so much pie for all of us all the time.
so much pie.
So
Hopefully,
I agree that there's work to be done. There is ongoing, and hopefully we can more and more be making stories to be told and getting people to understand our culture more, and therefore people will learn to come and understand where we're coming from, and again make us feel more belong in this beautiful country. I believe in that,
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mimi, Xavier, JJ. I feel like we could have been talking for like 10, 20 more minutes, but I appreciate everyone's time here. And I think we're going to get ready, take a little break before we do our next session.